The ESG Progress Worksheet in the Sustainability ROI Workbook helps you describe how much your proposed project will help the company reach its related environmental and social goals. It's preloaded with a complete set of possible goals based on the Future Fit Business Benchmark, but we'll show you how you can tailor this worksheet for other sustainability goals that your company may have already set for itself, and we'll show you how to fill it in. The worksheet is at the third tab in the workbook, and you can see that we're using ESG as a handy short synonym for sustainability. Let's start with an overview of how the worksheet is organized. As I mentioned before, it has the Future Fit Business Benchmark goals arrayed in various clusters. Let's take a look at those. At the top, you can see that the first group is the Cause No Harm Break-Even set of goals. In other words, these are the goals that a company must meet based on best available environmental and social science, and the first cluster of goals has to do with the environmental aspect of sustainability. You'll notice that beside them, each of the goals, there is an allowance for the fact that the company may have already been working on this goal and achieved some progress towards it with other projects, so you can fill that in with information that you gather from others in the company. And you are also going to have a chance to show how this project is anticipated to improve on that goal, and then the total of the two of them to show how the combined progress towards the goal is going to be achieved at the end of this project. You can see that this goal covers a bunch of topics, so I'm just going to scroll down, and you can see a bunch of topics that are included in the environmental set and an opportunity to summarize, we'll come back to that later on, the highlights of progress that this project is going to help you achieve against those goals. And then there's a group of social goals, and these are goals that have to do with society at large, customers, community, employees, and again, the same kinds of metrics that you can put in beside them. And then at the bottom of those two clusters, there's a way that we're going to graph the results of progress on the environmental and social do no harm goals. Companies may also want to do some good, have some positive impacts on things. So they're not only messing up the environmental and social nests that they're in, they're actually helping to restore them. And these are goals that they may decide to take on. First of all, there's the environmental cluster, and you can see the various topics that they might want to be able to be net positive on, and also a way in which they can score the attributes, the dimensions of those projects from the point of view of the depth of the project, the breadth of the project, duration of the project. So those are the environmental goals, and then underneath those are some social do some good goals. And again, there's going to be a graph of the two of them underneath. Once we fill in the columns with some data, those will be automatically graphed. And at the very bottom, there is a way for that depth, breadth, and duration of the project to be assessed for the do some good goals. So let's scroll back up to the top. You may have seen some goals that you think would be actually pretty good for your company to have, but they don't have goals in those areas yet. But this may not be the right time to get into that discussion with executives. You want to come back to that later on, that's great, but really what you want to do is tailor this worksheet for the existing goals that the company has, because you're going to want to show how your project is going to help progress towards those goals that the company has already set. So you're going to tailor these goals to reflect the goals that the company has. That means that you're going to want to delete some. So let's suppose you wanted to delete the one that has to do with natural resources. You just click on the number beside the row, right click on that and delete that row. If you think that encroachment, for example, should be deleted, you could delete that one as well. So it's pretty straightforward to just get rid of them. And you'll notice that they all move up and everything's fine. And the graphs down below are going to reflect those new ones. They automatically pick up the labels that are left or any labels that you change. So if we go back up here and we wanted to, rather than delete rows, just change a row, and take, for example, procurement, and maybe you want to say something about packaging, you can just overwrite it, double click on it, and overwrite it. And maybe you put in a goal that says something like packaging waste is reduced by 20 or 80% from 2015 levels. You just type it in and that becomes a new goal. So what I'm trying to help you understand is you can change these goals to reflect the goals that you have. You'll probably have significantly fewer goals than these, so you can combine them all into one list or leave them as separate categories or whatever. But by the time you're finished, you're going to have a set of goals against which you can show the progress that the company is making on the goals by this particular project that you are proposing. For purposes of illustration, we'll use the Future Fit Business Benchmark goals just to show how this sheet would look if they were adopted by the company as their aspirational goals. I helped develop them, so I'm a bit biased about them as being the best ones to use. They're science-based, their scores are all calculated on a scale of 0 to 100%, and they all come with wonderfully detailed guidance and formulas for calculating the scores, and all of that guidance is available from the Future Fit Business Benchmark website that's looked after by the Future Fit Foundation. Each of the goals has guidance on how to calculate the scores, and that guidance pops up when you click over a cell. So as you mouse over a cell, up pops the comment, and you can see what that looks like. And while we're doing that, let me just show you how to freeze a comment so that you can read it. You'll notice this one is partially off the screen, so we want to take a look at it. Let's see if we can just freeze it. So you right-click on the cell and go down to Edit Comment. And when you do that, the comment becomes entirely visible. And in this particular case, the comment contains the way in which the score is calculated, the formula, and some guidance on where you can find more information about the details behind that formula and the methodology. To get rid of the comment or to take it away, just click on the cell again and it disappears. So let's scroll back horizontally and let's undo the changes that we made when we were showing you how to tailor it. So we'll just undo until we're back to where we were before. All right, so now we're ready to start to fill it in. Since our project is a green retrofit for the headquarters building, the environmental goals that are most relevant are the ones that have to do with renewable energy, operational greenhouse gases, probably something on water. We'll probably make some progress on our waste goals as well. So what I'm going to do is fill in the appropriate fields on this worksheet and show you what it would look like for this particular project. So we're showing that the company hadn't made any progress on their energy from renewable sources goal before this project, so the progress was 0 on that, also on greenhouse gases. But this project took it 70% and 80% respectively towards those two goals. So the total after the project of progress is all attributable to this project. So it's still 70 to 80% of the target performance. Same thing for water. In the case of natural resources, we've allowed for a little bit of the way in which the landscaping is done and so on to improve or add to a performance achievement of 80% of the goal beforehand, another 5% because of this, so afterwards it's all 85%. So it gives you a chance to have both before and after results. And those are going to be graphed down below, which we'll show you in a second. On the social side, this is a headquarters retrofit, so about the only social goal that might be positively impacted is employee health because of better air, lower volatile organic compounds, more daylight, that kind of thing. So they may have had some good progress before this project. After the project, they had another 15%, so that the total achievement of the two is 95%. And down below, you can see the graphs of how these look. So there are two bars associated with each of the categories of goals. There's a before, which is the yellow one, and an after, which is the light purple one. And you can see for the case of renewable energies, operational greenhouse gases and water. All of the progress is happening after the project, so there was none before. Whereas in other cases, you can see that there was some progress before in the case of waste, and as a result of this project, you've gone even further towards the goal, 100% being the goal. So it's a snapshot of not only progress from this project, but also from other projects on other goals, which might be of use to the people who are making decisions. On the social side, you'll notice that we're not making additional progress on any of them except the employee health one, as we saw above. So that's how that graph looks. It's unlikely that there'll be any net positive or do some good type achievement as a result of a headquarters retrofit project, but I forced a couple just to illustrate how this might work. So the one that I forced here is that it might increase the amount of renewable energy available. You can see that there's a comment associated with that talks about to edit that so that it describes exactly what's going on here. And over on the side, I've shown a depth of 2, a breadth of 2, and a duration of 3 for a total of all 3 of those, which is 7. And that's based on the scoring matrix, which is shown down in the footnote, that we're going to be adding some renewable energy, perhaps leftover, extra renewable energy to the community. So if we're producing more renewable energy as a result of our headquarters retrofit that we can put back onto the grid, we're going to provide that for local groups who are on the same grid, and it's going to be a permanent addition. So 2, 2, and 3, and that's what adds up to the score. So that's the way in which that is shown, and it's graphed down here showing the possible 9 and the one that we were changing, which is the renewable energy provided to others as opposed to the company. On the social side, there's a bar that reflects a score of 6 for this infrastructure contribution. So again, I kind of made that up and just showed some numbers there to be able to illustrate how this would work in the way in which the results are graphed. In reality, let's just zero those out because let's assume that this project actually isn't going to be doing anything for others in the community. So I'll just zero those out. So what we're looking at here is basically no change on the do some good side and some actually pretty good change on the environmental and social side associated with doing this project. So the last thing we want to do is to summarize the so what of this project for each of these categories. And you have an opportunity to do that by a free form summary of the above results on the environmental goals. So this is a highlights of progress on environmental cause no harm goals. And you have a chance to just overwrite this example with whatever you want to put in that reflects the results that we see above. So if you were to do that, it might look like this for this project. So here's a brief summary of the way in which this project has been able to make progress on the goals. So we've achieved 70% of the energy goal, 80% of the greenhouse gas goal, and 85% of the water goal after this project to improve performance in the waste goal. There are a couple of other goals that we could have mentioned as well. We didn't. We can add those if you wanted to, but essentially this is just free-form text to hit the highlights of what's going on as a result of this project from the point of view of environmental and social progress on the goals that the company has set for itself. So that's the way in which the highlights for the environmental do no harm goals might look. I've also taken the liberty of summarizing what the improvement on the social side is, and it has to do, as we saw before, primarily with employee health. So that's a bit of a summary of that. And the summary for the do some good positive results on the environmental side, no change. And on the social side, no change. So those are just nice, neat summaries. And the neat thing about the workbook is that it captures those summaries and copies them into the overview worksheet that we looked at before. So in the background, after we've completed these cells or these fields, if we go back to the overview, click on the overview tab, and scroll down to what it says about progress in the company's environmental, social, and governance goals, it's picked up exactly what we put in for the highlighted summaries of the numerical progress that we had made. So the ESG Progress Worksheet is one that you can tailor to whatever goals or targets the company already has. They may be based on the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, or B Corp related goals, or Global Reporting Initiative related goals, a variety of different sources of goals that the company may have tapped into to develop and articulate its own goals on the environmental and social side. The nice thing is that this is an informational worksheet about things that accountants classify very often as intangible or extra financial. The worksheet doesn't feed any of the calculations in the other worksheets. It's for information. So in an extreme case, where the company doesn't yet have any sustainability goals, this worksheet can even be deleted from the workbook entirely. The business case for the project will still be strong, even without that extra financial icing on the cake